Welcome to MissouriNet.com. I'm Bill Pollock, and this week on our visit with MSHSAA, I'm joined by Dr. Kerwin Urhahn, who is the executive director. Jason West taking the week off. Kerwin, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Bill.
We as a society, Kerwin, we've tried to find a way to take the focus off of winning, where winning is everything. And you go down to youth sports, and kids are given an opportunity to play different positions, more playing time, equal playing time, which is great. I've seen some leagues where rules are changed, where score isn't kept, and rules are modified to lessen the effects of winning and losing. Good intentions, but I think at the same time, there's nothing wrong with knowing the score of a game or the outcome of a game. You kind of learn to deal with those disappointments and use that as a way to measure how well you've done. But then you've got the other extreme where winning is everything, and you put winning at all costs. And so you're trying to find this good balance. And the program that you guys are working with at MSHSAA, Why Do We Play, is an interesting look at this from a coaching aspect. And I think even parents and players and students can learn a lot from this. Can you kind of take us to the beginning of this and how this all came about?
Where this came about, Bill, is in Minnesota 4 years ago, they started with a book study. And the book that they began reading was Joe Ehrmann's Inside Out Coaching, in which Joe asked 4 very critical questions. And, the basis for this is, why do we have sports in our society? And whenever you look at this, it's different for each of those categories. You talked about club sports and youth sports, and we deal primarily with interscholastic sports. And so we have to look at, why do we have high school sports and activities? And the reality is, as you said, wins and losses are important. They're our goal. That's what we put out there for our goal. We want to win. And that, I think that's normal in our society, is that we want to win, but it's not the purpose of why we do high school sports and activities. Our purpose is to prepare kids for life. And whenever you look at that, people want to say, well, you got rules and you tell kids they can't do this and can't do that. And my response is, yes, we do, because that's the society in which we live in, and having to deal with those and learn from those things is what we want to teach our kids, those life lessons that classrooms don't always basically give the opportunity to teach those. But sports and activities definitely do give those opportunities, because they give us the opportunity to learn to deal with success, to learn to deal with failure, to learn to deal with situations whenever we put everything we have into something and we give it every bit of our effort, and then we come up on the short end. We don't get the results that we want. And guess what? That happens every day in life. And so what we've done is we've tried to look at, why do we do what we do? What is our purpose of high school sports and activities? And we're trying to get back to why we do those things. And Bill, I go back to whenever you and I were kids, we played because we loved to play. We wanted to play because it was fun. And yes, eventually we wanted to continue to play and keep playing. But the reality was, and the reality still is as of today, 97% of all of our kids who play high school sports and activities, whenever they're done with high school, they're done playing organized sports. They're not going to play in college. We don't have the ability. I didn't have the ability to go on and play at the next level. That doesn't mean that I'm bad. That just simply means that I didn't have the God-given talent to go on and play in college. It doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy and love playing high school sports and participating in activities, because it taught me so many things and developed so many relationships with people that are still close to me today. And whenever I look back at what my 15 years of coaching in the public schools and being around kids, and they're my kids, and we need to get back to those relationships being positive, and preparing kids for life outside of high school, and letting them know, it's okay to take those chances, to take those risks, because you're going to fail, and guess what? You're like everybody else. I go back to Tiger Woods, and whenever Tiger came out, Tiger was very successful. How does he deal with failure? And he had to deal with failure because he only won 25% of his championships that he played in. All the tournaments he played in professionally, Tiger won 25% of them. That's an ungodly number. But the thing about it is that he lost 75% of them. How do you deal with that? Those are life lessons that we all have to learn. And so the rationale and the purpose behind the why we play is to get back to looking at what we're wanting to achieve with our high school sports and activities, and trying to get some reality back into the situation that it's not all about scholarships. It's not all about wins and losses. It's about preparing kids. And Bill, as I told you before we went on, I get a little passionate about this, and I apologize for going on, but it is something that I truly, truly believe we have to get back to, because we've lost that focus of why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Kerwin Urhahn is the executive director for Mission. I want to kind of tackle this in maybe like 2 or 3 areas, but the first with the coaches. Do you think high school coaches are under more pressure, whether it's from maybe parents? I don't know if the school districts would be this way, but there is so much focus on winning. Is there pressure on them to deliver wins, to deliver district championships, to deliver state championships? Is that more now than it was maybe 15, 20 years ago?
I believe there is more because of the social media aspect and people thinking, oh, well, we've got to win. If we don't win, then we failed. And I think that focus has changed over the last 15 to 20 years. We go back to, what are our coaches doing with our kids, and we got to do more because our neighbor down the road's doing more, and so you got to practice all summer long, and you got to get our kids involved in doing more club stuff, and you got to do more. And in reality, we're not talking to our kids about, are you having fun doing what you're doing? And because of that, administrators get pressured that you got to get rid of this coach because they're not winning enough. Coaches feel like if they're not winning, they're going to get fired and they're going to lose their jobs. And you're talking about livelihoods and affecting people's lives simply because they didn't get a win whenever somebody thought that they should have had a win. And so there's always been that pressure there to win games. That's never changed. Even whenever I was coaching many years ago, when I started 25 years ago, yes, we all want to win. And we feel that pressure, if not from external, but even internally, we want to win. But, why are we feeling that pressure? Is it because that we want that for ourselves as coaches, or is it simply because we want our kids to experiencing that success? And I think it goes into what Joe talks about being transformational or transactional in our coaching style. And sometimes you have to have a little bit of both as far as coaches go. But if it's all about, I want that for myself because I'm the coach and I want everybody, hey, look at me, I'm a good coach, that's not what it's about. It's about giving these kids the opportunity to succeed. And if they win, great. It is fun for the community. It's fun for the school. As you go on through the playoffs, everybody that ever experiences that, it is a fantastic experience. But again, that's the goal and not the purpose of what we want to do with our high school sports.
So as you unveil this to schools, and you really have to start at the top with athletic directors, and doesn't the mindset have to change at that point?
It has to change with the administrators and giving them ammunition to protect those coaches, because they're going to have people who are going to come to them and say, you got to get rid of this coach. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago whenever Jody came in and presented why we play, about the fact that we need to have a clear-cut purpose statement for why we do high school sports. And that goes back to developing students for life. And so whenever somebody comes in and wants to talk about wins and losses or even playing time, you can point to our purpose is to develop all kids and to prepare them for life. And the reality is you're going to have some kids who are going to be able to do certain things well, and you're going to have other kids who may not be able to do things well, but they add different components to the team. You know, I had an athletic director tell me a story about the time whenever they had a young man who was not going to get to play much on the football team because just didn't have the God-given ability. But his heart and his desire and his work ethic in practice was something that taught the rest of the kids that here's somebody who's not playing every single day or every single down, but they're giving us everything they have every single day. And if he knows that he's not going to get to play, but is still out there working hard, that is a lesson that coach can use to teach the other kids that you have no excuse to lay off or not give us your best effort, because here's somebody who's not going to get to play, but is giving it everything. And that kid ended up being a special teams player and played on every down of football special teams that year. But in reality, if the other teams would have saw him on tape and realized that he couldn't tackle and would have ran at him, they would have gained an advantage against him. But the coach said, you know what? I'm putting him out there because he gives us heart, and that heart is what's going to get us through. And that team ended up reaching their goal that year of winning a state title, but it was because of what that young man brought to the team to show other kids about what it's important, and that's working hard every single day. And so to have that ability to do that, the coach has to know that the athletic director understands it, and the athletic director has to know that the principal understands this, and the principal has to know that the superintendent understands this, and ultimately the school board is going to be able to defend that coach and support that coach whenever those parents come and say they're not being successful enough or they're not winning enough, so we need to get rid of this coach and bring somebody else in, because everybody knows that Newt Rockney is coming to your school to coach football, or Mike Krzyzewski is going to come to your school to coach basketball, because they're just waiting to come to your school. And then the reality is that you have good people at your school. Now, if that coach is not treating your son properly, then absolutely you need to be there talking to that administration about that, about we need to do something different with our coach. If they're mistreating your daughter, then absolutely you need to go to that school and talk to that school. But if it's about wins and losses, we need to look at what is our purpose, and is that coach achieving what we want them to do by preparing kids for life. And, you know, we have to start at the schools, at the administrators, and they have to understand that and support those coaches.
We're talking with Dr. Kerwin Urhahn from MSHSAA, the executive director. You touched on it right in the beginning about how you and I growing up, you know, we played sports to have fun, and you know, I played some organized sports, but a lot of it for me was going out in my neighborhood, finding who was available. And if you had 8 kids in our neighborhood that could play, then you had a great 4-on-4 baseball game. If you had 3 of you, you had modified rules. Sometimes you didn't use a baseball, you went with a wiffle ball, you played in somebody's yard. You know, you adapted to all of this stuff. Now, kids, they don't have that luxury. I call it a luxury that we had. I mean, we had to think and be creative, but now there's organized leagues, and there's tryouts, and there's practices, and you know, you talked about the year-round commitment. As you work this through from the administration, athletic director, principal, coaches down the way, how difficult is it though by the time these kids get to high school, because their parents have had to, and sometimes you're forced to kind of push your kids in this direction. How difficult is it to change the mindset of parents and players when they get to high school?
It's very difficult because it's kind of been ingrained in them. But in that aspect, Bill, and what I would say is that we have to start someplace. And what I look at is that I was the youngest of 3 boys. And you're absolutely right. We had the luxury of creating our own games, because if we didn't have enough kids, we did. We did exactly what you said. And we made up the rules as we went. And, you know, an adult may look at us and go, you guys are crazy, but it made sense to us as kids. If we touch the parents that have kids in high school, maybe they have kids in elementary and in junior high, and they see that it's okay to let these kids be themselves and to do those things that we used to do as kids, to create those own games, and they don't have to be playing club sports year-round. But what we need to do is we need to lay the foundation at the high school, and then once we do that, we start reaching out to those clubs at the youth age, and trying to give them the support that they need to go back about why do we play. And as you said, many leagues have where they don't keep score, or they, everybody does gets a trophy, those type of things, to try to make it where it's not about wins and losses. The thing is that they have to have the support and know what their purpose is and what they're trying to basically reach. And, whenever I look at clubs and parents tell me, well, we travel, we played all these games, and our kids won this national title, I understand wanting to win. And I played, in fast pitch softball, I played till I was 38 years old. And the thing about it is that there were multiple levels of which I played. There was major level, there was Class A level, Class B, Class C, and basically it all revolved around the pitchers that were available to us to have on our team, to which level we could play. And so the same thing happens today in club sports. You have kids who are maybe playing club sports year-round and playing on these teams, but if they can't compete at a certain level, they may drop down a level. Well, if I'm playing at the lowest level and, we're having success, does that mean that my child is going to have success when they go to high school and be able to even make the team? It's not guaranteed, simply because the level what they're playing at in club maybe not be at the level what they're going to play at in the high school. And so that purpose of what you're wanting to do and wanting to accomplish, it needs to be looked at honestly, and ultimately it needs to go back to that child to say, are you having fun doing what we're doing? Or are you doing it because you think that's what we want as your parent, is for you to do this? And that is a difficult conversation to have, and it's difficult sometimes for that child to answer honestly and openly, because they don't want to disappoint their parents. And whenever they're asked that, they have to be able to feel that if they tell you, you know what, I'm not having fun anymore, that you're going to be okay with that. And ultimately, I would think that most parents would be okay with that, because they love their kids and they want their kids to be happy. And so sometimes that conversation that we're talking about at the high school level should have occurred earlier. But if we don't set the groundwork for why we're doing what we're doing and what are you trying to accomplish with your child participating, it's never going to happen if we don't set the foundation.
I love it. I think it's a great idea. How can parents and students learn more about this?
Basically, they need to talk to their athletic director and encourage your athletic director to get involved with this conversation that we've started in our office about why we play. And one of the things that we're going to do this fall is we're going to do a book study, just as Minnesota did, on the Inside Out coaching book, just to get the conversation going about what are you doing in your school to change the focus back to what the purpose is of why we have high school sports and activities. And, some areas of the state, I was in outstate in southeast Missouri. It's 4.5, 5-hour drive to come to Columbia. So they may not be able to do the book study here in Columbia with us. That doesn't mean they can't do a book study in their area with the schools around them to say, okay, how do we get this conversation back to what it needs to be about and why we play?
Good stuff. What has been the feedback so far from athletic directors here in the state?
Bill, the feedback has been very positive, and they're basically starving for something to be able to change the focus, because they don't know how to answer some questions. And this isn't any knock against them, but they're getting hit from every direction about, you got to have a great coach, and you got to win a state championship, and you have to do all these things. And they're looking for basically information and support to be able to go back about, those are great goals, and that's what we want our teams all strive to do, but it's not our purpose. And so when we've given this out to our athletic directors, they have basically said, we want more. And so my challenge now is to be able to give them more information, more support, more best practices of what schools are doing to get this message out, and how they're using it to support their coaches and their kids to give them the greatest opportunity and the greatest experience they can with playing sports and activities in high school.
Well, I could keep going on and on with questions, but I will let you go. This is really good. Let's follow up though in a few months and kind of see where the process is at though too.
I would appreciate that, Bill, and I would even invite you, if whenever we have the book study, I'll let you know when we're bringing everybody in, and if you want a copy of the book, I'll be glad to send you the copy of the book and allow you to come up to kind of see what we're going through, and also to see some of the best practices, because we're going to do a two-part deal on that day to have them come in and talk about the book and talk about the 4 questions that Joe asked, and then ultimately tell us some of the things that you're doing, schools, and maybe take part in that if it works into your schedule.
Oh yeah, that would be great, because I know our listeners and viewers on MissouriNet.com have enjoyed the feedback from these weekly conversations, and this would be some great positive stuff to share with them and pass along.
Look forward to it, Bill.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kerwin Urhahn, the Executive Director from MSHSAA, joining us on this conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. Certainly a lot to think about, whether you're a parent, a student, or a coach watching this too. So thanks again for Kerwin for your time, and thanks a lot for watching us. And check back on MissouriNet.com for more high school sports. Thanks.